Physics and economics have had a long and tumultuous marriage. In 1776, Adam Smith likened the movements of relative prices to a process of gravitation. In the late 19th century, the marginalist economists used mathematical techniques from physics to explain their system of comparative statics. Economics has many a times been accused of physics envy due to its practitioners' recurrent attempts to portray the discipline as a natural science. Elements of physics are yet again being wed to those of the dismal science in the movement known as Econophysics. Born in the 1990s, Econophysics applies techniques of statistical mechanics from physics to economic analysis. In a recent paper, renowned economist Sanjay Reddy attempts to answer the following question. In that paper, which we will discuss in this talk, Reddy gives an overview of what he believes statistical mechanics can and cannot do for economic explanation. From the outset, Reddy distinguishes explanation from description and prediction. Description involves characterizing the past or the present. Prediction involves anticipating the future. Explanation, unlike description or prediction, requires some description of why an event has occurred. It involves providing causes. For example, bring to mind the following: a street sign, the sun shining down on it, and the resulting shadow being cast on the street. We could describe the length of the shadow using a tape measure. We could even predict it if we knew the angle of the sun and the height of the sign. However, neither of those would explain the length of the shadow. For an explanation, we would need to cite some sort of cause. In this case, it might be the fact of sunlight hitting the sign. Reddy points out that explanations can sometimes provide predictions, as in the case of natural selection. Other times, they might not. Historical factors, which explain the French Revolution, for example, will not do much to predict revolutions down the road. To address the question of whether or not statistical mechanics approaches can explain economic phenomena, Reddy distinguishes between two lines of thought in econophysics: the epistemic and processual views. We will outline each of these in turn. The epistemic view holds that the principle of entropy maximization from statistical mechanics is an appropriate tool for predicting which distribution of some economic variable will come into being. Entropy is a measure of disorder within a system. The principle of maximum entropy dictates that the most likely distribution of any given variable to arise is the one with the greatest possible entropy. Say, for example, we wish to predict the future income distribution of a particular country. Those who hold the epistemic view would predict that the most likely future income distribution is the most entropic one possible. As Reddy writes, the point of the epistemic view is that entropy maximization, quote, provides a methodologically privileged approach to predicting what distributions will arise. Separate from the epistemic view is the processual view. The processual viewpoint postulates a different notion of how equilibrium comes about than the one put forth in mainstream economics. In the standard neoclassical view, equilibrium is the static kind. It is a fixed state achieved through the amalgamated actions of identical but isolated agents. The processual view of equilibrium is not static, but statistical equilibrium. This sort of equilibrium arises not by summing the decisions of indistinguishable actors who never encounter each other, but instead it emerges through the interactions of those agents who are individually dissimilar. Statistical equilibrium is the same sort characterized by gas in an enclosed container. At the microscopic level, the particle level, particles of air in a tightly enclosed jar, they act something like billiard balls. They travel at different speeds, chaotically changing velocity from moment to moment as they bump into each other. However, their interactions give rise to this highly stable property, the air pressure of the jar. The pressure of the jar is not stable because the individual particles each travel at some stable speed. In fact, far from it, they do not. The pressure of the jar is stable because the distribution of particle speeds is constant. Despite irregularity at the individual level, the interaction of particles at this micro level ensures that air pressure reaches equilibrium at the macro level. Equilibrium of air pressure is regarded as stability of distribution, not stability of individual particles. Thus, in the processual view of economic phenomena, economic equilibrium of some variable, wages, profits, relative prices, etc., is when that variable's distribution is stable. For example, equilibrium of profit rates has not been reached when all firms have the same profit rate, but when the distribution of profit rates is stable. The thesis of Reddy's article is that the processual view can contribute to explanation, while the epistemic view cannot. The processual view alone specifies a cause of economic phenomena, the process of equilibration, which is ultimately driven by acts of human agency. Since the processual view points to a cause, it contributes to explanation. The epistemic view, on the other hand, does not contribute to explanation. Its core concept, the maximum entropy principle, it's a principle of prediction. It does not specify any sort of process. Thus, while the epistemic view may contribute to prediction, its failure to point to causes means that it does not contribute to explanation. That is not to say the epistemic view is useless. Prediction is a worthwhile goal. Some economists, Milton Friedman, for example, thought it should be the only goal of theory. Whether the maximum entropy principle can predict economic phenomena is an empirical question that can be subjected to the data. That concludes this talk on economic explanation and statistical mechanics. Thank you to Professor Reddy for walking me through his wonderful paper. You can read that by looking to the description of this talk. If you'd like to get in touch with me, either to discuss topics in economics or for tutoring in economics, please do that via the link in the description. See you in the next one.